The bells of Notre Dame Cathedral echo through the heart of Paris, their bronze voices calling across centuries of history. Today, we unravel the tragic story behind one of literature's most misunderstood characters. But this isn't just a tale about a hunchback. This is the story of how a cathedral becomes the silent witness, the stage, and ultimately the true protagonist of a dark medieval tragedy. Before we climb into the bell towers, if you enjoy deep dives into literary history and the legends that shaped our world, subscribe and follow to support the channel. Now, let's step into 15th century Paris, where stone and flesh intertwine in ways you never imagined. Notre Dame Cathedral stands at the geographical and spiritual heart of Paris on the Ile de la Cité. The massive Gothic structure dominates the landscape, its twin towers rising 69 meters into the sky, its flying buttresses reaching out like stone arms. Every event in this story happens within sight of the cathedral. It watches, it shelters, and it condemns. Victor Hugo publishes Notre Dame de Paris in 1831, but he writes it with a specific purpose: to save the cathedral itself. By the early 19th century, Notre Dame falls into severe disrepair. Revolutionary forces damage it, citizens strip its decorations, and the city considers demolishing it entirely. Hugo's novel serves as a passionate plea for Gothic architecture preservation, and the cathedral becomes his true main character. On Quasimodo Sunday in 1467, the first Sunday after Easter, an abandoned infant appears on a wooden bed at Notre Dame's entrance. The baby suffers from severe physical deformities, a large hump on his back, another on his chest, a wart covering his left eye, and crooked legs. The cathedral foundlings would typically handle such children, but this infant's appearance terrifies everyone who sees him. Dom Claude Frollo, the cathedral's archdeacon, makes a fateful decision. He adopts the deformed child and names him Quasimodo, meaning half-formed or incomplete, after the holy day of his discovery. This act of apparent charity masks darker motivations. Frollo seeks to atone for his younger brother's wild behavior by performing a visible act of Christian mercy. The cathedral's stones witness this adoption, the first link in a chain of tragedies. Frollo raises Quasimodo within Notre Dame's walls. The boy rarely leaves the cathedral grounds, making the Gothic structure his entire universe. The cathedral's galleries become his pathways, its towers his home, and its bells his only companions. As Quasimodo grows, Frollo assigns him the role of bell ringer. Notre Dame's bells bear names and personalities. The great Bourdon bell Emmanuel weighs over 13 tons and requires enormous strength to ring. Quasimodo develops extraordinary physical power swinging through the bell towers, his deformed body becoming perfectly adapted to his environment. The relationship between Quasimodo and the bells transforms from duty to obsession. He rings them with such violent enthusiasm that the vibrations gradually destroy his hearing. By the time he reaches adulthood, Quasimodo becomes completely deaf, isolated even further from the human world below. The cathedral has claimed him entirely. He can no longer hear human voices, only feel the vibrations of the bronze bells through the stone. The deafness creates a tragic irony. The only being who truly loves the bells cannot hear their music. He knows them only through touch and vibration, feeling their voices through his hands on the ropes and his feet on the tower floors. Notre Dame has consumed one of his senses as payment for sanctuary. Dom Claude Frollo serves as Archdeacon of Notre Dame, one of the cathedral's highest religious officials. Born into a respected family, he loses his parents to plague while still young. Left as guardian to his infant brother Jehan, Claude throws himself into religious study and ascetic practices. The cathedral becomes his refuge from worldly temptation. For years, Frollo maintains his reputation as a learned, pious scholar. He studies alchemy, medicine, and forbidden knowledge in his cell within Notre Dame's structure. The cathedral's walls conceal his growing obsession with the occult and his experiments in the tower chambers. Books line his rooms, manuscripts cover his tables, and strange instruments clutter his workspace, all hidden within the holy building. Everything changes when Frollo sees Esmeralda dancing in the square before Notre Dame. The young Romani woman performs with her trained goat Jolly, her beauty and grace visible from the cathedral's heights where Frollo stands. At approximately 16 years old, Esmeralda represents everything Frollo has denied himself through decades of religious devotion. The archdeacon's obsession grows like a cancer within Notre Dame's walls. He watches Esmeralda from the cathedral towers, tracks her movements through the square, and gradually descends into madness. The cathedral witnesses his transformation from ascetic scholar to obsessed predator, its stones absorbing his torment. Esmeralda lives with the Romani community in Paris, performing in the square called the Parvis de Notre-Dame that stretches before the cathedral's western facade. This plaza serves as Paris's social center, where crowds gather for festivals, executions, and daily commerce. Notre Dame's three massive portals, the Portal of the Virgin, the Portal of the Last Judgment, and the Portal of St. Anne, frame every event that unfolds here. The young dancer knows nothing of her true origins. Stolen as an infant, and raised by the Romani, she carries a small embroidered bag containing a baby's shoe, her only connection to her real mother. She performs innocently, unaware that the cathedral's archdeacon watches her with growing madness from the towers above. Esmeralda's goat Jolly performs tricks that some consider witchcraft. The animal arranges letters to spell words and names. In 15th century Paris, such performances attract dangerous attention. The Parvis de Notre-Dame becomes both her stage and the place where her fate will be sealed. Pierre Gringoire, a struggling poet and playwright, wanders Paris attempting to stage his mystery play on January 6, 1482, the Feast of Fools. This medieval festival allows common people to mock church hierarchy, elect a Pope of Fools, and engage in temporary social reversal. The celebration centers, inevitably, around Notre Dame. The crowd abandons Gringoire's play to elect their Pope of Fools. They bring candidates to the cathedral's broken window, making them pull faces through the opening. Quasimodo, lured down from his towers, shows his true face through the window. His natural appearance, not an artificial grimace, wins him the crown. The crowd hoists him onto a portable throne and parades him through the streets while the cathedral bells ring above. This moment represents Quasimodo's only taste of human acceptance, twisted though it is. The same crowd that crowns him will later turn against him. Notre Dame watches this brief celebration, knowing the darkness that approaches. That same night, Frollo commands Quasimodo to kidnap Esmeralda from the streets. The archdeacon, consumed by obsession, watches from the shadows while his adopted son attempts the crime. Notre Dame's towers provide vantage points for this predatory surveillance. Captain Phoebus, de Shadowpers, and his guards interrupt the abduction. They capture Quasimodo while Frollo escapes into the darkness, abandoning his servant to justice. Esmeralda sees Phoebus as her savior, immediately falling in love with the handsome but shallow officer. She never realizes the true architect of the attack hides in the cathedral above. The next day, authorities bring Quasimodo to trial in the outdoor court near Notre Dame. The deaf bell ringer cannot hear the charges against him or the judge's questions. His attempts to respond come out as grunts and moans, which the crowd interprets as insolence. The judge, who is also deaf, conducts a farcical proceeding where neither party hears the other. They sentence Quasimodo to 2 hours on the pillory in the Parvis de Notre-Dame, directly before the cathedral. He must endure public flogging and the crowd's abuse while chained to a rotating wheel platform that displays him to all sides. Notre Dame's facade provides the backdrop for his humiliation. Under the burning sun, Quasimodo suffers on the pillory while crowds mock him and throw stones. He cries out for water, his voice echoing off Notre Dame's walls, but no one shows mercy. The cathedral watches its bell ringer tortured in its own courtyard. Esmeralda appears in the crowd. Despite Quasimodo being her attempted kidnapper, she sees his suffering and feels compassion. She brings him water, placing the flask to his lips while he weeps with gratitude. This single act of kindness from the beautiful dancer transforms Quasimodo's world. He becomes utterly devoted to her from that moment. The cathedral witnesses this exchange of mercy, the monster and the beauty, the outcast and the dancer, united briefly in an act of human compassion beneath Notre Dame's judging portals. Esmeralda believes Phoebus loves her, not knowing he is engaged to Fleur-de-Lys de Gondelaurier, a wealthy young woman. Phoebus arranges a secret meeting with Esmeralda in a room at the house of a woman named Philordel. The building sits within sight of Notre Dame's towers. Frollo follows them, driven mad by jealousy. He hides in the room and watches Esmeralda surrender to Phoebus. At the moment of their intimacy, Frollo emerges from hiding and stabs Phoebus with a dagger. The archdeacon then escapes through the window, while Esmeralda faints from shock. When Esmeralda awakens, authorities arrest her for attempted murder. Phoebus survives, but to protect his reputation and engagement, claims no knowledge of Esmeralda. She faces trial alone, accused of stabbing a captain of the guard through witchcraft. Medieval justice employs torture to extract confessions. They take Esmeralda to the torture chamber beneath the Châtelet fortress, but Notre Dame's shadow still reaches her. Frollo appears as the examining priest, supposedly to save her soul before execution. Under threat of the boot, an iron device that crushes the legs, Esmeralda confesses to charges of witchcraft, murder, and consorting with demons. She names her goat Jolly as her familiar spirit, sealing both their fates. The false confession comes from fear of unendurable pain, not truth. They sentence her to death by hanging in the Place de Grève, and she must first perform public penance. The route takes her past Notre Dame, where she kneels in a white shift on the cathedral's steps while priests condemn her soul. The cathedral witnesses another victim of Paris's justice. As guards lead Esmeralda to execution, Quasimodo descends from Notre Dame in a dramatic rescue. Using his enormous strength and knowledge of the cathedral's layout, he snatches her from the guards, carries her up the western facade while climbing the stone sculptures, and disappears into the bell towers. From Notre Dame's heights, he shouts the one word that protects her: sanctuary. Medieval law grants the cathedral the right of asylum. No civil authority can seize anyone who claims sanctuary within its walls. Quasimodo raises Esmeralda above his head, displaying her to the crowd below, claiming the cathedral's protection for her. This moment represents Notre Dame's most active role in the story. The cathedral transforms from witness to participant, its ancient rites shielding the condemned dancer. Its walls, towers, and legal privileges become Esmeralda's only barrier against death. Quasimodo installs Esmeralda in a cell within the cathedral's structure, providing her with his own bed, food, and water. He protects her with fierce devotion while remaining aware of his own hideous appearance. He comes to her only at night or when necessary, trying to spare her the sight of his face. Within Notre Dame's sanctuary, a strange relationship develops. Quasimodo loves Esmeralda with pure, selfless devotion. He brings her food, provides her with his pet sparrows for company, and shows her the cathedral's bells, though he cannot hear her voice, and she sometimes recoils from his appearance. Esmeralda, however, remains obsessed with Phoebus. She stands at the tower windows looking out toward his fiancé's house, hoping to glimpse him. She does not realize that Quasimodo's deaf ears cannot hear her requests, and she grows frustrated with her protector's seeming obtuseness. The cathedral contains them both, beauty and deformity, requited and unrequited love, all enclosed within the same stone walls. Notre Dame becomes a prison and sanctuary simultaneously, its chambers holding their intertwined fates. Frollo continues to live in the cathedral as archdeacon. He knows Esmeralda hides in the towers, and he visits her in secret. The archdeacon offers her a terrible choice: give herself to him, or he will revoke sanctuary and return her to civil authorities. Esmeralda refuses, choosing death over submission to the man who destroyed her life. The Romani community and the Truands, Paris's organized criminal underworld, believe civil authorities plan to remove Esmeralda from sanctuary by force. To rescue her, they organize an assault on Notre Dame itself on the night of May 29, 1482. Thousands of attackers swarm the cathedral, bringing a massive wooden beam to ram the door. They assault the western facade with ladders, attempting to scale the walls. Notre Dame becomes a fortress under siege, its stone defenders against an army of social outcasts. Quasimodo defends the cathedral alone. He drops beams on the attackers, pours molten lead from the roof onto those below, and breaks ladders with his bare hands. His intimate knowledge of Notre Dame's architecture turns the building into a weapon. He knows every beam, every position, every defensive capability. The bell ringer believes the Truands intend to harm Esmeralda, not rescue her. He fights with superhuman strength, killing many attackers while trying to protect the woman he loves. The cathedral's stones run with blood, its beauty transformed into a battleground. Royal troops eventually arrive and slaughter the remaining attackers. The Parvis de Notre Dame becomes a killing field, while the cathedral stands impassive, having witnessed another massacre at its base. During the battle, Frollo helps Esmeralda escape from the cathedral through a secret door leading to the river. He brings her to the Place de Grève, where the gallows stand, and presents his ultimatum one final time: become his or die. Esmeralda again refuses. Frollo, in ultimate vindictiveness, calls for a recluse who lives in a cell in the wall of the Place de Grève, a mad woman named Sister Gudule, who has spent 15 years in self-imposed imprisonment, mourning her stolen child. Through miraculous revelation, Sister Gudule discovers Esmeralda is her long-lost daughter. The embroidered baby shoe Esmeralda carries matches the one Gudule has kept for 15 years. Mother and daughter reunite for mere moments, their recognition coming too late. Frollo summons the guards. They seize Esmeralda while Gudule desperately clutches her daughter's hands through the cell window. The guards tear them apart with such force that Gudule's hands are crushed. They drag Esmeralda to the gallows while her newly found mother watches. From Notre Dame's North Tower, Quasimodo searches desperately for Esmeralda. The cathedral's height allows him to see across Paris to the Place de Grève. He watches as guards place the noose around Esmeralda's neck. Beside Quasimodo stands Frollo, also watching. The archdeacon's face shows satisfaction as the execution proceeds. He has destroyed what he could not possess. Quasimodo follows gaze and realizes the truth. His adoptive father, his only human connection before Esmeralda, orchestrated everything. The archdeacon's obsession caused every tragedy, every death, every moment of suffering. With a roar of anguish, Quasimodo grabs Frollo and throws him from the tower. The archdeacon falls, striking one of Notre Dame's projecting gutters, which breaks his spine. He slides down the cathedral's sloped roof, desperately grasping for holds, before plummeting to the pavement below. Notre Dame's very stones reject him, casting him down to his death. Quasimodo looks down at Frollo's broken body on the Parvis de Notre-Dame, then across to where Esmeralda hangs from the gallows. He whispers, "All that I ever loved." The cathedral has witnessed the destruction of his entire world. Quasimodo vanishes from Notre Dame that day. No one sees him leave the cathedral that has been his entire world for approximately 20 years. The bells fall silent without their ringer. Approximately 18 months later, workers opening the mass grave at Montfaucon, where they throw executed criminals' bodies, discover two skeletons locked in an embrace. One shows severe spinal deformity and other abnormalities matching Quasimodo's appearance. This skeleton clutches the other, which wears the rotted remains of a white dress. When workers attempt to separate the skeletons, the deformed one crumbles to dust. Quasimodo followed Esmeralda to death, holding her in the grave where authorities dumped her body after the hanging. His final act was to join her in death, embracing her as he never could in life. Notre Dame stands through all these tragedies, witnessing, sheltering, condemning, and ultimately surviving. Quasimodo returns to dust, Esmeralda hangs on the gallows, Frollo shatters on the pavement, but the cathedral endures. Victor Hugo emphasizes this in his narrative structure. Every chapter references Notre Dame's location. The building provides the constant geography against which human tragedy plays out. The cathedral's three major architectural features, the towers, the bells, and the Great Western Facade, serve as more than setting. The towers provide Quasimodo's home and the vantage point for Frollo's final fall. The bells deafen Quasimodo, isolating him from humanity. The facade becomes the stage for his public humiliation and heroic rescue of Esmeralda. Hugo writes that ancient Greek tragedy had the word fate as its foundation, while medieval drama substituted Notre Dame. The cathedral becomes fate itself, implacable, enduring, witnessing all human suffering with stone indifference. Hugo fills his novel with detailed descriptions of Notre Dame's architecture, some accurate, some romanticized. The cathedral suffered real damage during the French Revolution. Revolutionaries beheaded the statues of biblical kings on the facade, mistaking them for French monarchs. They melted down bells for cannon metal and desecrated the interior. By Hugo's time, the city uses Notre Dame as a wine warehouse. Birds nest in the damaged stonework, and weather erodes the sculptures. Hugo's novel deliberately celebrates Gothic architecture to inspire preservation efforts. His strategy succeeds. Public outcry following the novel's publication leads to major restoration work beginning in 1844 under architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc. The novel's title in French, Notre Dame de Paris places the cathedral first, not Quasimodo. English translations often retitle it The Hunchback of Notre-Dame, shifting focus to the character rather than the building. This reverses Hugo's intention. The cathedral is the protagonist, and Quasimodo merely its most famous resident. Every tragedy in this story unfolds within sight of Notre Dame's towers. The cathedral watches Quasimodo's abandonment on its steps, Esmeralda's dancing in its square, Frollo's descent into madness in its chambers, the torture, the rescue, the siege, and the deaths. The building provides the stage, the fortress, the prison, and the witness. Hugo writes in the novel, the cathedral is not only the Queen of France, but also the heart. Notre Dame represents medieval Paris itself. Ancient, powerful, beautiful, and indifferent to individual human suffering. Its stones absorb centuries of tragedy and remain standing. The dark truth of this story is that architectural beauty outlasts human life. Stone endures where flesh fails, and the cathedral continues ringing its bells long after everyone who loved them has turned to dust. Notre Dame is not merely the setting of this tragedy, it is the eternal survivor, the one character who never dies. Thank you for joining this exploration of the cathedral's darkest tale. If this deep dive into literary history resonated with you, please share it with others who appreciate the tragic beauty of Gothic storytelling. Subscribe and join us again as we uncover more legends that have shaped our cultural imagination. Until next time, may you listen for the bells.